By PC, pod or pad, you're listening to Paid to Play. I'm Rob Farker, your host for this exploration of the dangerous idea that bringing your whole self, especially the parts that you worry make you seem silly, geeky or odd, into your income-generating life is one of the best things you can do. It might not be easy, but it's easier than we think and even fear, and I'd like to help show you how. In each episode of this podcast, I chat with a career crazy and income iconoclast, someone who has embraced this dangerous idea and has started making a product or a service out of their play and has started earning money from it. And they definitely don't get more dangerous than my guest today, Joel Zaslofsky. He is dangerous in the fact that he has bought out of the prevailing idea that happiness comes from things, from purchasing, from having lots of money and lots of things that you've bought with them. In fact, he's extended this idea not just from possessions and shopping in general, but to looking at his entire life. A few years ago, Joel had what he calls a personal renaissance, when he finally decided what was important to him, and in order to focus on that, he realised he needed to do a lot of stripping back of the things in his life that he finally realised weren't all that important. And after that, or during that even, Joel came to the realization that there must be a lot of other people out there who are facing a similar crisis of having too many things and not knowing exactly what to do with them. And since then, Joel has started a website called Value of Simple, which is again focused on bringing simplicity to your life. And on top of that, he is also a fellow podcaster with the Smart and Simple Matters show, where he chats with people who have also embraced this idea of living better and happier through minimizing the amount of stuff in your life. So it is an absolute pleasure, after listening to him for such a long time, to have him on the show today. Joel, thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I had to withhold a little chuckle when you described me as dangerous. And I have been described as an iconoclast before. Normally it's a simple living iconoclast. Most people have this image for simple living of things that are pared down and minimalist and black and white, whereas I tend to be a little bit more vibrant in personality and color choices than most folks who are iconoclast. So yeah, maybe I'm an iconoclast within iconoclasts, if that's even possible.
A subcategory within the broader category, as it were.
Perhaps.
Now, I'm going to start off with a slightly odd question, Joel. Imagine that I had given you a ticket that, after this podcast is done, grants you free time to do the next thing that you're looking forward to doing. What would that thing be?
Well, it would be rounding up anywhere from 3 to 10 people, whether it's on a Google Hangout or even better, locally, and talking to them about how they live an intentional life, how they build community together, how we can do that as a collective group and make sure that people have a sense of belonging, that they're among the right people. It's one of my great loves in life to bring people together on a variety of topics and simply just to have meaningful conversation. So I would love to be not the person running the show, but just the one facilitating meaningful conversation amongst a whole bunch of folks. Often don't have time to do that, at least at the scale that I want. And if I had a little extra slice, I would immediately pour that into bringing folks together.
Damn it, Joel. I would be in on that.
Yeah?
I wouldn't mind turning up to one of those sessions and just sitting back and chatting. It's sometimes it's a bit hard, especially in my neck of the woods, to just get people together. And even with the advent of the internet, it's an interesting thing to discover that even though in theory it ought to make getting people together that little bit easier, sometimes it seems just as much like herding cats as it is in real life.
Mm-hmm. I know that feeling well.
You talk a lot about your personal renaissance you experienced a few years back, and I imagine that there are quite a lot of listeners to this podcast who were most likely in a similar situation that you found yourself in when you commenced your personal renaissance. So can you tell me a little bit about that stage of your life and the realization that you needed and wanted to change things, and then how you started going about doing that?
Sure. Well, if people want the full story, I'm just going to give you the shortened version. And if you'd like, I can expand on anything that you hear, any thread that you want to pull on, Rob. It would be fun. I enjoy talking about it. I've really gotten a ton from hearing about other people's transformational moments in their lives, and I enjoy sharing mine too. By the way, I have a new website. I'm no longer at Value of Simple. I'm actually at joelzaslofsky.com. So if people want to check out my story, they can go there. At any rate, I just wanted to just set the table by saying I'm not special. I'm just a regular dude or dude. Well, I'm not a dudette. I'm definitely biologically a guy. I was going to say to be gender equal there, but I'm a regular guy. So anything that I say is not intended to make me sound important. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of things that are still lacking in my life personally, not in terms of familial or community wise. I have just an absolute abundance. And a lot of that started with a realization back in April 2010 when my wife Melinda, when she told me she was pregnant with our first son, Grant. And it was at that moment, Rob, I thought, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Like, I'm finally going to be a papa. And then later on that day, a sense of dread just very slowly crept over me. And I realized, wow, I'm going to be a father in 8 months, and I am so ill-equipped to be a good father. Now, I'm staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning playing video games, and then going to work at a job that just is draining me, working 11 hours a day purely for the money. I'm not doing it for any kind of greater sense of purpose or any social good. And I had that realization at that point in time that a lot of things needed to change in my life. From the work that I do to the kind of relationships that I have to the food that I eat in order for me to become a good father in 8 months. So with that backdrop, I started making some radical changes, getting into minimalism, the paleo lifestyle, really trying to focus in on, okay, if I wasn't doing this corporate thing, what would I be doing? What kind of gifts do I have? What kind of skills do I have that would be valuable to others? Where I, instead of constantly taking, where I could be generous, where I could make my life one of service instead of one of trying to extract value from others. So it's really from that moment forward where all these things that have happened in about the past 6 years have unfolded in this super cool way where some of it is just forced evolution, where I'm experimenting and I'm trying different things. Other parts are just the kinds of people that I'm meeting, the ideas that I'm exploring and seeking out are just sometimes instantly changing me or just very subtly over the course of a number of years, changing who I am, what I do, who I work with, what lights me up.
I like how you mentioned the subtle changes. I think sometimes people expect that when change starts, it's all got to happen really quickly instead of realizing that sometimes there are some changes that take time because none of us can change thoroughly overnight. It takes time to learn things and internalize things and let those changes basically permeate through your system, whether physically or mentally. And I do like something else you mentioned right at the beginning, and I think it's something that tends to dissuade a lot of people, is that you mentioned that you're a regular dude, and sometimes people feel like in order to make the kind of changes that they need or to be the kind of person that they think they have to be not a regular person. They have to have something special going for them or something that's a really unique talent. I mean, was that something that you perhaps struggled with at the beginning? You know, this thought that as much as you wanted to change for the better, everyone else around you was in this same, or I suppose most of the people around you were in this same sort of zone of doing a 9 to 5 or longer. I mean, I work sort of an 8-hour-a-day job, and you were doing an 11 at the time. It almost seems like people feel like there is no way out of there unless they have some sort of buried ultra talent that they've not discovered.
I had no discernible talents, at least none that any had ever pointed out to me as being super valuable. I had no one in my family history that had become an entrepreneur. I didn't know online or offline anyone who was in that entrepreneurial circle. And it took a couple of years from the point where I decided I want to change the kind of work that I do to the point where I quit and I decided to go out on my own. There's a lot of rough months, Rob. A lot of really awkward conversations with my wife in terms of, well, what if I did this? What if I did that? It was very, very tricky. And I've made a lot of, my self-awareness is so much higher now where I can pick out these things about me, whether it makes me unique, whether it makes me valuable. So for example, like right now, what we're doing, you and I, making a difference with my voice, this is my thing. I wrote a book, but I don't particularly like writing. I've been on video, but I don't particularly enjoy video. Audio is my medium. And oftentimes when it comes to making what I call verbal impact, whether that's through my podcast or whether that's through being an event organizer or whether it's just there's a group that I'm involved with called Live Your Legend. And every month there's monthly gatherings where I host anywhere between 8 to 12 people. We get together at my friend's house, Intentional Community, and we talk about all the things about doing the work that you can't not do, surrounding yourself with the people who show you that that crazy idea you have, that impossible thing that you think you can't possibly do, actually, with the right people in your corner and the right resources, you can totally do that. So the big switch in my life was starting to, one, pay attention to alternate ways of thinking and being and doing. Blogs were a great place where I started. Becoming Minimalist, Joshua Becker's blog, was a huge one. Mark's Daily Apple, which is all about the paleo lifestyle. He calls it primal, but it's essentially about the paleo lifestyle, was another one too. Just exploring, getting curious, and figuring out that the way that I was living, the way that I was thinking and doing and working and being, that there were alternative ways. And initially it was like, whoa, this is liberating. And at the same time it was crushing. I was like, I've wasted 30 years being this guy who has not done anything valuable beyond my immediate circles. I have talents. I have skills. I think I'm a good person. Why haven't I used this in a better way? So it was empowering at the same time as just like, wow, what a waste. But I'm not going to waste it anymore.
Reminds me of something I read once. Jesus was only half right. First, the truth shall piss you off.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a scary thing to confront, this idea that, you know, for so long you've just been doing the things that it looked like, according to the rest of the world, you were supposed to be doing, and then to realize that really they weren't particularly helping you or anybody else for that matter in any sort of concrete way. But what was the first thing that you put together as, I suppose, as a business initiative or a product when you first sort of looked at your own talents and made them into something that people could purchase from you?
Well, the first thing, so I came from the world of finance. I worked for a company called RBC Wealth Management, which is one of the biggest financial management firms in North America. And I thought, well, I've always loved personal finance. I know the world of investing so well. And this was about 6 months after I had quit my job in the wealth management industry. I was doing operational things. I was also doing some technology strategy, putting together roadmaps for new customer relationship management systems and kind of being a hybrid business analyst, project manager. So I thought, okay, I know how to create a project. I can create my own product with my project management skills. I can use my existing knowledge in the world of investing to create something. So the very first thing that I created was something called Start Investing with $100. Don't bother Googling it. It doesn't exist anymore. I was quickly embarrassed after I had published, about a month after it was out there in the world. I was like, ew, this does not feel good. That's, in retrospect, that's not a bad thing. The very first thing that anyone does in pretty much anything isn't going to be all that great. So I had this investing product, an online course where I taught other people what I felt were the fundamentals of investing, is even if you had as little as $100. Because I saw so many people back in my my corporate days that were excluded from this system because they had so little money. I wanted to appeal to the common person, the person who was just out of college, the person who's been struggling with debt, whatever they would be. If they had as little as $100, I could teach them to start investing and where to put it.
You said something interesting there about how you'd been embarrassed by the results of that project, and I think that's something that a lot of people tend to stumble at. That horrid feeling that when they've put their time and effort into creating this thing and then they put it out there, and either through feedback from others or just coming back to it after a bit of separation and getting a bit of space from their darling that they were so close to for a while, they sort of look at it with these new eyes and go, what the heck is this horrible thing that I've done? And it becomes the thing that actually they manage to chase themselves away through this negative emotional reaction from doing anything further. And how did you get over that and then keep pressing on?
Well, part of it was I am in a amazing mastermind group. So like you, I am a multi-potentialite, somebody with a diversity of passions and interests and skills. And I was in this online community called the Putty Tribe, which I'm still a part of and I still absolutely love. I met a number of fellow multi-potentialites, and for almost 4 years now, so this is going back to just about the start of 2012, every other Tuesday for 2 hours, 5 of us, including myself, all who are solo entrepreneurs, mostly doing things online, we meet and we do peer development. We encourage each other. We share resources and connections. So after that first failure, I had very few sales. I had no email list. I had very little web presence. My marketing was terrible for start investing with $100. And as I limped back to my friends and basically my board of directors, because I don't have a legal one for my business, they were the ones who said, okay, yep, that kind of sucked, but we know you got more in you. We know you can do something different. Let's talk about what that is. Let's figure out a new vision for how you can help people beyond what you used to do. Let's start thinking about what you want to do, regardless of whether you have any experience with it, regardless of what kind of online infrastructure you've built. And it was really with the help of them that I went on to my second and third and fourth thing that I've created.
I've, as you're well aware, I've heard of the Putty Tribe, and I gave it a couple of tries myself, although I think the frustrating thing, unfortunately for me, was being in Australia. I think the hangouts and the get-togethers are kind of a key part of the Putty Tribe, and it always seemed like they were happening when I would be at work. Or they, and as much as I tried to rustle up some other local members, it just seemed like there were very few and far between, and unfortunately I couldn't get anyone together for that. But it is, I think that's probably one of the trickiest things, is that when we try these things at first, we do tend to try them on our own, and we don't really have all that many ready connections with people who are in that same sort of space with the rest of us. So perhaps just trying to, as much as you might have people close to you in your corner, you were talking about your own conversations with your wife about where you were going, what you were doing. I suppose sometimes it helps to have people who are, if you'll forgive the hackneyed phrase, who are taking a similar journey to you at the same time, or at least who have been there and know what you're going through. So that sounds almost like one of the secrets to success. Just try and find those people and ideally get together with them as often as you can, so you can give each other support when you hit those rough moments.
Mm-hmm. And even I have an amazing life. I'm intensely grateful for so much, but even with such a great life, there's still a lot of rocky moments. There's still a lot of self-doubt. There's still this feeling that I'm not resourceful enough, that despite all the connections I have, all the things I know how to do, it's just never enough. And so I need to learn more. I need to do something bigger. I need to challenge myself even more. Those are some of the conversations I have with myself, and oftentimes it's just simply not true. You know, when I stop for a moment and I ask myself, is that thought that you just had true? Can I prove that it's true? if I said that out loud to somebody else, would they laugh at me and be like, "Oh, Joel, you're so ridiculous. Come on now. You know you got this. You know you're better than this." And that's one of the things about me personally is I love to talk things out loud. So now I have all these people who love all these different topics that I'm into. Some people who are local where I can physically get together. People literally all across the world who I know that I can talk to, who have a different cultural approach to it, or just have a fundamentally different background than I do. It's wonderful to be challenged. I love it when people just very bluntly challenge me, the assumptions that I'm making, or the direction that I'm taking. So, I mean, it's easy for me to say I'm very extroverted and I love being connected with each other or with people. I also love connecting everyone with each other. And that was one of the things that I learned first when it was like, okay, so what are people going to pay me for? Like, as we think about the themes of your podcast, Paid to Play, what thing do I have that other people are interested in having me use it for? And one of the things is bringing people together. That's why I love event organizing. I haven't made much money, but I've made a little bit of money on a couple of Simple Living themed events called Simple Rev. And there's a number of other things that I'm doing when it comes to just simply bringing people together, not being a solutions provider. And that's one thing that I realized, Rob, that maybe some other folks who are listening, they're like, okay, but I'm not very good at my own products and services. Well, I don't have answers for people for the most part. I do know the people who do have answers. And if I can get that person who's seeking something, who's feeling pain, or who wants to experience more joy, if I can get them the resource that they need when they need it, if I can be that connection point for them, then I'm valuable. And I'm kind of the conduit between the folks who are seeking and the people who are providing. And I love being that intermediary. It's just a ton of fun.
I am sitting here and making notes at the moment, Joel, because I've kind of had that similar struggle for the longest time of, I've been doing this podcast for 3 or so years now, and there is always this feeling in the back of my mind, I need to have a product, I need to have something I can put up on my website and that kind of thing. And there have been a couple of entrepreneurial networking meetups locally that I've tried, and thinking back on them, I never felt like I quite fit in, and I think part of the problem was actually the gent who organised them, fine fellow entrepreneur himself, was organising them at a local night spot. So you had to raise your voice to talk. There was alcohol around, which, looking back at it, I didn't quite. I never quite really enjoyed it. I never really felt like I was connecting with the people there. So maybe it's and I've organised a few things in my time, like Facebook groups for local gamers and that kind of thing. So I'm starting to think that maybe this is something I ought to really seriously start looking at myself. So yes, pen is scribbling away at the moment.
Well, good. I hope other people's pens are scribbling away in the moment, assuming they're not driving while listening to us or working out or doing anything.
Now, I know from following you for quite a while, you have experimented, as well as with audio, etc., with writing. You have put out a book all about an aspect of not exactly living simply, but helping you get on top of all of the various things in your life, experience curating. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So there's the irony, right? So the guy who professes that he doesn't like to write wrote a book. And it was so hard. I can never say never, but I do not think that I'll ever write another book. I had the most amazing editor, a woman named Erin Curup, who's a good friend of mine, and she made a difference between a book that was just 36,000 words of ugh versus something that was actually valuable that people want to read. Experience curating is this concept of being your own librarian, your own archivist, having this very intentional filter in terms of the experiences that you have every day. So whether it's a conversation that you're having, whether it's a movie you watched, a podcast you listen to, there's valuable parts of experiences that we have that can be for your future benefit or for the benefit of others. Maybe that's for work. Maybe that's for your spiritual quest. Whatever it may happen to be, taking this lens that what we experience can be curated. So it all starts with that filter that you have in your mind of what's meaningful, what's valuable, and then you archive it, you organize it, you maintain the context, because our brains are a horrible place to try to remember the details and the context and experience, even for people with really good memories, of which I am not. And then having a method to access it. I use Excel spreadsheets because I'm a total spreadsheet fanatic, and I have access to them wherever I am. And then the last part, so I'm basically running you through what I call FAOCAS, Rob. FAOCAS, filter, archive, organize, contextualize, access, and share. Those are the 6 steps to curate any experience that you have. And what you do with those experiences differs from person to person. I use it to be a resource, to be a go-to person for the things that I love, whether that's podcasting or simple living. Other people use it for content curation, for marketing purpose, for their business. I've seen a ton of people be really successful with that. Other people use it for recipes, to make sure that whether they have 15 minutes to prepare something for their family or whether they just want to do something different this time, they have all the recipes in Evernote or a commonplace book or some other place. But that's really what it's about, is all these possibilities of our past experiences. We can harness them and we can use them in the future. And experience curating is a great way to do it. It's not a straightforward concept. So when people think about it, like, hey, Joel, really? So you expect me to go through life making audio notes in Evernote about the conversation I just had with my friend, and they said something that was really cool, and who knows, maybe I'll want to write a book someday, and maybe I'm going to want to quote them. How am I going to remember that it happened? Who was it that said it to me? When did it happen? All of these individual elements, what I call experience elements, the who, what, when, where, why, and how that make up a unique experience. How are we capturing those? Are we even trying to? Like, do we realize all of the untapped wealth that we have from our past experiences? And what are we doing with them? Because if what you've experienced in the past isn't helping you in the present or in the future, why did you experience it in the first place? Maybe you want to try to read different blogs in the future. Maybe you want to start having conversations with people who blow your mind that make you think, that was awesome. I need to do something with what you just said. So it's a way to adjust your lens of what's essential, what's meaningful to you, and make sure that you get more of that going forward in the future.
After your personal renaissance and implementing all these incredible initiatives, and of course at the moment you are still developing new things, you're shifting away from Value of Simple to joelzaslofsky.com. Actually, that's an interesting thing in and of itself, because it seems as though you're sort of moving away from a brand based around an idea to self-branding, to kind of standing a little bit more behind yourself as a person. And right at the moment, I've got to admit, I'm considering similar, because I have a weblog of my own at robf.com.au, and I've given it various ideas and themes across the years. At the moment it's called the Society for Doing Things, and I'm also thinking of doing something similar, just actually taking it back to being just robfarker.com.au and making it a bit more about being just a blog and also a portfolio of the various things that I've done. What brought you to this change after being with Value of Simple for so long?
Well, the reasons why I originally created it no longer stood. And my ability to effectively and concisely communicate what Value of Simple was about, I failed. I tried for 3 years. I came up with different taglines. The best one I had was simplify, organize, and be money-wise. I told people that all the time. But really simplicity was the dominant force. I mean, it was even in the name, value of simple. And organizing, people generally didn't want to hear about how I organized my life in Excel spreadsheets. They didn't want to hear about all the systems and processes I use with my Google Calendar to make sure that my relationships grow. It's just not something that was really sexy that folks wanted to hear about. And then the be money-wise part, which kind of smacks back to my personal finance, my financial days. I love talking to friends and family about helping them out with their individual money circumstances. I'm not a personal finance blogger or podcaster. That just was not something that applied to me anymore. So I thought, what I was trying to create was this overarching theme with value of simple. The problem was there were 10 different themes, some of which were complementary, others of which were seemingly contradictory to anyone who didn't live inside my own brain. And I thought, this is just too hard. This is too much work. Maybe someday I could actually figure this out and communicate it properly. But instead, I would rather just people who are interested in me as a person or what kind of value I bring to the world, I just want them to go to a website and see a buffet. And they see, oh, hey, there's this guy, he's Joel. He's got a podcast where he talks about relationships and curating and gratitude rituals and all these different things. Great. I like podcasts. I'll listen to that. But he's also got a book called Experience Curating. No, that's not my thing. What's this thing? It's Simple Rev. It's about simplicity, your way, at your speed with your people. Yeah, I'm feeling kind of isolated or detached. I could use some simple in my life. So really, it's just, out of the core things that I do, it's just laying them out and almost creating a silo for them, a buffet where somebody can go and say, I'll take some of that. I'll take a little side of that. Oh, sure. Yeah, I'd like to have you come and do a workshop for me, but all the rest of it, don't care about. So now it's so much easier for people to figure out, 1, what I stand for, 2, what I can offer, and 3, most importantly, what's relevant to them. Because the last thing I want to do when somebody gets to my website is waste someone's time. And now I feel like instantly people can get it and they can either say heck yes or they can say heck no. And that's exactly what I'm going for now.
Right. It sounds like a website that kind of really embraces what you were talking about earlier on. This being a multi-potentialite, that you're one person with many things going on with them and many things that can be of value to different people in different ways. So, yeah, it really sounds like you're kind of onboarding that as your personal brand and, as you said, letting people take that as they choose to.
Yeah, exactly.
And I had
Fortunately, it's working a little bit.
Good. And I've got to admit, I had to have a little bit of a giggle there when you were talking about getting rid of the not sexy stuff. So, there you were. Once you got rid of all the not sexy stuff, you were left with Joel Zaslofsky.
Yeah, very unsexy, right?
Oh, I was actually thinking, no, you got rid of all the unsexy, and yes, hello, I'm Joel.
That's right. Yeah. I'm Joel Zaslofsky. I help create simple living communities. I podcast about smart and simple matters, and I get you excited about spreadsheets. May I interest you in living intentionally? No authentic relationships? Would you like to have more gratitude? No prior experiences required, I promise.
So tell me, Joel, what is next for Joel Zaslofsky? What are you looking forward to in the near future?
Well, I have, for as much as I have not focused on making money for the past 4 years, I don't exactly have an income earning imperative, but there is some freelance work that I'd like to do a little bit more of. I've done some freelance project management in the past. I'm very good at it, and it pays very well. I don't want that to dominate my week, but maybe if I could have 6 hours of freelance project management work, I'm looking to actively drum that up. There's all kinds of other things that I could be doing from a freelance perspective, maybe a fourth of my overall time for the week. I do work for the Putty Tribe. Emily Wapnick, she's had me do billing and membership management behind the scenes for the Putty Tribe for a while, and that's been wonderful. So that's a small component of it, but really what has my heart and just makes me just beam and get so excited is Simple Rev. So this movement within the overall Simple Living movement that I helped create in 2013. So Rob, when I heard you say where you are, that you can't really find your people. And if you do, how they want to talk and what they want to talk about and where they want to meet is loud and it's difficult and you need to be more assertive than you want. I want to equip people where they are to become simple living beacons in their local community. So we have this initiative called Simple Rev Local. It's at simpleRevLocal.com/local. I said that wrong. simplerev.com/local. And we're basically equipping people from around the world to bring people together in their community around the principles of simple living, whether that's tiny houses or zero waste, sustainability, mindfulness through meditation. There's so many different facets of it. And over the next 6 to 12 months, I would say the bulk of my work will be to bring people together. You're noticing a theme here. And specifically to bring people together just as a facilitator to empower them to do it in their community. And we feel like we've got some really cool resources and some folks who are all about helping them do that. So that's my big thing coming up.
Sounds fantastic. All right, Joel. Well, and I know you've already given a ton of good advice in this show, but if there were 3 things that you have learned during your personal renaissance and your setting up of your broad and varied initiatives that you wish perhaps someone had been able to tell you right at the start, and that might be of value to someone who is right now where you were at the beginning, what would those 3 things be?
Well, the first one is self-awareness. So before, I was sleepwalking through life. I was a total zombie. I was inside a bubble. I didn't know it. And then when my bubble popped, actually when my wife popped it for me, when she said that she was pregnant with our first son, I stepped outside and I thought, wow, there's a lot of really cool stuff in here. But as I go out to explore, I also need to go inside and explore myself. I need to know myself much better. And with that self-awareness has come all of the great things, the people, the connections, the ideas that I've had. So whatever people can do, maybe that's meditation, maybe that's just saying crazy things to friends and finding a receptive ear where they can reflect back to you and say, here's what I hear you say, and you can get some kind of self-realization as a result of people reflecting back to you. That self-awareness piece is the foundation of everything else. So that would be number one. And as you know yourself better, maybe you already do, this is a somewhat recent concept. A buddy of mine, a guy named Christopher Carter, he's over at This Epic Life. He has something he calls non-negotiables. And I've recently defined what my non-negotiables are. And knowing those things, the things that I can't not have on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, whether it's connection, ritual, reflection. I'm a family man, so having really focused, intentional family time, being able to make my impact verbally and experiment in all ways, that has been just so tremendous, is thinking about my life in terms of my non-negotiables. What must I have to live the kind of life, to make the kind of impact that I want to have? So that'd be the second one. And then I guess to build upon what I just said, my non-negotiables, that last thing that I listed as a non-negotiable, experimenting, I tell you, and I still kind of cringe sometimes at the things that I force myself to do, but experimenting, whether it's with having a conversation about something I know nothing about and sounding really dumb, but being willing to do that, or whether it's trying a new food, or whether it's just being super silly and trying a new type of play with my small boys. Experimenting is the way that we learn how to do everything else. I mean, no one ever learns just through osmosis. It's a myth. So how do we learn? How do we grow? We do it through experimentation. So what I've set up is a systematic, structured set of experiments that I conduct on a regular basis. And if people don't have the ability to do that, if they don't think that they can do that, there's some pretty nifty things that I could share, whether you want to put them in the show notes or anywhere else, when it comes to how do I embrace uncertainty? How do I get comfortable with the discomfort that comes along with experimenting?
No worries, I'll have to put those in the show notes, definitely. Well, I think you've already, during this podcast, also given a couple of places where people can go and find you. You've mentioned the new website, joelzaslofsky.com, and let me just make sure I've got this right. That's Joel, Joel, Zaslofsky, Zulu Alpha Sierra Lima, Oscar Foxtrot Sierra Kilo Yankee.com.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Fantastic. And there is also the Smart and Simple Matters podcast, and you've mentioned simplerev.com. Where else can people go if they want to find more out about you or connect up with you?
Well, joelzaslofsky.com is the best place. That's my new home on the internet and the hub for everything else. Social media handles, I'm at Joel Zaslofsky, primarily just on Twitter right now. I do a little bit on Google+. But if people want to get a hold of me, find me at events like the World Domination Summit, which takes place in Portland, Oregon every year. I'll be there again. If folks want to meet me in person, maybe you want to have me come to your event, I would love to explore that with them. I am all about connection, Rob, and meeting new people. So if somebody is curious and they think, oh, this Joel guy, he seems all right. Maybe I'll give him a shot. Maybe I'd like to get to know him a little bit better, whether it's online or whether it's offline here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, in the United States, or any place that I hang out online. I'm just all about connecting with an individual and also having people get connected with each other. So hopefully that's enough to be like, oh my goodness, my head's swimming now. Just pick whatever people want to do. Just pick a thing and do it. And then if they want more, there'll be a buffet waiting for them.
Fantastic. Well, after having connected with you online for quite a while, Joel, it has been an absolute pleasure connecting with you while still online, but directly. It's been fantastic having you on the show and great talking with you about the things that you've achieved and the life that you're able to live nowadays. So once again, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, and Rob, just a side note, I'm grateful that you invited me on the show. I really appreciate what you represent. I appreciate how you do it. And this is completely unsolicited. I really hope people will support you on Patreon. I hope that people will take 2 minutes to leave you an iTunes review. If they're still listening after 40 plus minutes, then something we said was valuable and they like you or they get value from you. And I hope that folks, after they're done listening, they won't necessarily do anything for me or with me, but they will reward you for the good work that you do. I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to come on and also really proud of who you are and the kind of work that you do. I just wanted to say that as well.
Thank you very much, Joel. And in doing that, you've kind of saved me 5 to 10 minutes for recording an outro. So that's a bonus there already. And I don't think I can say anything more without sounding gushing or babbling on. So, look, I'll just say, Joel, thank you once.